Thank you again. Good morning and welcome all. And Mr. Slater, we are having this as observations on the planning applications that come to this council. Our first item, of course, was the minutes of the Planning Committee held on the 20th of February, and to consider it as a true record. We have already done that. We've had no matters arising from those minutes, as far as I know. We've had no apologies for absence. So the first planning application is, the first thing is the, shall I go on to the first planning application of 19 stroke?
No, Chair, if I can pause you there, can we please return to the agenda and declarations of interest, please?
All right. Well, I did declare my non-pecuniary interest in two applications, one 19 stroke 5838M and 20 stroke 1682M. These are non-pecuniary interests on the planning applications.
Thank you. And now to Councillor Jackson.
Thank you. I'd like to declare an interest on application 20 stroke 1367M, Paradise Mill. I'm a trustee at the Silk Museum, and we have one of the floors there in the mill, so we are a neighbour for this application. It's non-pecuniary, it's just in the interests of openness. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jackson. We now convene adjourn the meeting for the public speaker. Mr. Slater, welcome. It's your turn to speak.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to speak about 193097, which also includes 193098. To do this application, the developer needs to remove 5,000 square metres of peat from the site, which is against the NPPF and also against Cheshire East save policies in the local plan. These houses proposed are the wrong type of houses. They are all larger houses. You can see the developer cannot sell the current offering they are have in Macclesfield on Gunco Lane and Westminster Road. So clearly it's overdevelopment and a badly thought through plan. They all can also refer you to 3098, which hasn't come up today, but will come up, I'm sure. The developer Bellway have submitted 3098 because they have said that they cannot afford to build the whole site unless they get the extra houses on 3098. They haven't bought the land yet, so if you can't afford it, don't buy the land and don't do the project. The other thing to note is that the local plan stated that the whole site on the north side of Chelford Road should be 150 houses. With this application and the two others, 3098 and also Messrs Jones's, this will take it nearer to 250 houses. So again, overdevelopment. There's also community woodlands, which was planted and is noted in the local plan. It's 482 trees. These are to be removed, ripped out, and to be replaced by 26 trees. So clearly, the not enough woodland, and there actually isn't any reason why anyone would want to remove the woodland that's currently there because it's well established. There's also an issue about defensible boundaries. This was a greenbelt site, and the land bordering it is still in greenbelt. It appears from these plans that the developer wants to use fencing and is going to remove the hedging on Worley Road to replace it with hedging, which is clearly not suitable. On the western edge needs to be a defensible boundary, and they've put in a few trees. So again, not ideal. And finally, just one thing that we may have passed on this, and it may not be suitable, but there appears to be an education shortage in Macclesfield. When these plans originally went to the SPB, the education department said there was no issues in places. However, a few months later, they had a crisis meeting which highlighted 392 places short for high schools. They have also recently applied for emergency classrooms at a number of schools in Macclesfield. Therefore, the children aren't going to be able to be educated in Macclesfield. There's no places. That's it. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Mr. Slater. We are just going to unmute the chair. We will now move on to the next registered speaker, and that is Councillor Liz Braithwaite, who submitted a statement. Councillor Braithwaite is a Cheshire East Councillor, member for Central Ward in Macclesfield and a local resident. And the statement reads, I wish to ask that more notice is given of future virtual meetings, the requirement to submit statements by noon the preceding Wednesday, and that any such meetings are advertised on the homepage of the Macclesfield Town Council website, i.e. the one that says the town hall is closed. It may help members of the public to participate if a general notice of virtual meeting dates and a link to the website was posted on the town hall notice board, and I ask the committee to consider this. I wish to comment on the following Central Ward applications. Firstly, I wish to thank those town councillors who submitted comments to application 20/0927M. Not on the agenda. Unfortunately, the application was approved, so we are now set to have a 15-metre telecoms mast on Park Lane. Application number 20/1490M, proposal sui generis, change of use for 8 times units of residential space on the first and second floors and ground floor, and a cafe bar on the ground floor. Also a shared workspace and small kitchen for guests on the ground floor. Location 88 to 90 Chestergate, Macclesfield, SK11 6DU. I'll be calling in this application as it appears to be an attempt to convert to an HMO, housing of multiple occupancy. I ask that MTC Macclesfield Town Council Planning Committee objects to this application. Application number 20/1578M, proposal emergency temporary classrooms for new pupil intake in September 2020, 2 temporary classrooms with associated hygiene room, toilets, utility room and storage, external tarmac ramp and paving location, Park Lane, Special School, Park Lane, Macclesfield, SK11 8JR. I ask that the committee supports this application. Application number 20/1662M, proposed outbuilding to form home office, location 221 Bond Street, Macclesfield, Cheshire, SK11 6RG. May I draw the committee's attention to the fact that the home office is quite large with a kitchenette, toilet and shower, and ask you to consider whether there should be any conditions on use. I also wish to comment on items 6 and 7 of the agenda. Item 6, conservation area review, and item 7, town character assessment. Can the committee confirm that no action is to be taken until agreed meeting with the Cheshire East Council officers and Cheshire East Council ward councillors has taken place, and any subsequent recommendation will be sent for decision at full council? Thank you for your time. Just to make clear to the meeting that there is to clarify on the early points about meetings being advertised. Meetings are advertised at least 1 week in advance, which is in excess of the 3-day requirement on the council's website homepage. It's displayed on the meetings and agendas page of the site, as well as the events calendar. Additionally, a notice is displayed on the town hall notice board on Marketplace. A schedule of meetings is not routinely displayed because meetings can change and this could cause confusion, especially under the current circumstances. With relation to items 6 on the agenda, the conservation area review, Macclesfield Town Council resolved to progress the conservation area review working with Cheshire East Council. A meeting to discuss this was programmed for the 3rd of April, but was cancelled due to the COVID-19 pandemic and emerging social distancing and lockdown restrictions. As Council has already resolved to progress this, there is no requirement to return to Council with this item. Relating to a town character assessment, item 7 on this agenda, this was to also be discussed at the meeting of the 3rd of April. There's been no discussion or decision made on this, and any recommendation of this committee to progress a town character assessment would be referred to Council for consideration in due course. I will ask the chair now. Oh no, sorry, I'm now moving on to Councillor Bennett Wake of Hurdsfield Ward, Macclesfield Town Council, who wishes to make a statement.
Okay, this is for application 201080W, the proposed Henshaws waste management site. Witherfield Drive is a small residential road that has bungalows to the right and family houses to the left. Residents are mainly retired people or young families. The drive is the size of a small cul-de-sac. It's totally unsuitable for the volume and frequency of large trucks coming back and forth to the site. Wagons are already damaging curbs and verges on Nicholson Avenue, and this combined with the noise, pollution, smell, litter, debris and risk to children and older people getting knocked over or hit by flying debris is unacceptable. The site entrance has always been problematic, and this has been mentioned by a local business on the site as an objection. It's too small for lorries turning and has previously caused chaos to residents and local businesses trying to move in and out of the site. This is a residential area. Even if the site entrance is moved to Snake Road, which incidentally is blocked by superbikes, the so-called industrial estate is a mixed-use area. It has a children's play centre, a climbing wall, yoga centre with a cafe, a dance studio, wholesalers, and these facilities are in the middle of a housing estate. Most families walk to and from this area. It's also used as a shortcut through a park as well. I am also concerned about the safety of employees, visitors and contracts, and possibly trespassers to the site. Caden have advised Henshaws there are gas and electricity cables underground, which could cause a catastrophic accident. No cyanide or other contaminants have been tested to my knowledge. The site is easily accessible with lots of hazards to those wanting to investigate. So there is concern about, you know, young people going to have a nose round the site and having an accident when the workers are off site. And these concerns have been expressed to the Health and Safety Executive, the Environment and Planning Departments at Cheshire East. Individual residents, all 8 pages of them, including the local primary school, have objected to the proposal due to the increased risk of children crossing the road, as well as increased pollution. I note that lorries over 3.5 tonnes emit more fumes, and if they're pre-2006, they contravene emissions regulations. And Henshaws have been moving vintage vehicles back and forth to the site, and I'm not sure if they are covered by these regulations. Diesel vehicles emit large amounts of poisonous nitrogen dioxide and particulate matter. Small particles of dust and soot can cause catastrophic effects on the unborn child's development, affecting lungs and cognitive development. Exposure to air pollution such as this can cause or worsen asthma and lung conditions in children. And also in adult life, there are strong links between strokes, heart disease and diabetes. Air pollution is estimated to cause 40,000 premature deaths in the UK. And I've found this evidence from Doctors Against Diesel, a charity called MedAct from 2020. If we look at the Tartan Rug health profiles for wards in Macclesfield from 2017, admissions to hospital and deaths for respiratory disease in South Ward and Herdsfield far outweigh the national average. There are already too many vehicles on the road in Macclesfield. We don't need any more in a residential area, decreasing the life expectancy of our residents. This doesn't comply with our environmental policies, both in Macclesfield and Cheshire East. And finally, may I express on behalf of the residents of Macclesfield our frustration and disappointment with Henshaw's lack of understanding in a time of an international pandemic. There are residents in Witherfield Drive and the surrounding area who are suffering with COVID-19 symptoms in lockdown because of underlying health issues or grieving for the loss of loved ones. Henshaws have shown scant regard for this. Myself and Councillor Steve Carter have written to Henshaws personally, asking them would they kindly stop activities until the planning application is discussed, because why are they setting up when they haven't got planning application? It seems somewhat underhand to residents and myself. I am quite disgusted they've not given the time to reply to us and consider residents' health, safety and well-being. Thank you.
Right, thank you very much, Councillor Bennett-Wake. We will return. Do any members have any comments? So any members have any comments? Ailif, I'm going to unmute you because you're on mute at the minute.
I see, sorry. Well, I strongly support what Councillor Sarah has said, and health and safety at this time in a built-up area of houses and children and such a small area, and the health profile of that of Macclesfield and of the council houses are so much not understood or not accepted, that I think this kind of application for a refuge dump, I support that it should be refused.
Thank you. In this public session, I see that Councillor Wilson wants to come in. I'm just going to find that one. There we go.
Yes, thank you, Pete. I want to second the proposal made by Councillor Harewood just now, that we should oppose this planning application. And I'd like to set out my reasons why, please.
Continue,
okay?
Please.
Yeah, so thank you, Councillor Bennett-Wake, for setting out the concerns of residents on Hurstfield and looking at the very detailed and very numerous opposition from local residents to this application, which covers all the reasons you've already stated. The key point really is about the health of residents and having an industrial waste site in the centre of a residential area. You've pointed out yourself, Sarah, the difficulties with respiratory illnesses already in the ward of Hurstfield. And I would like to go through the material planning considerations where I feel this application should be refused. First of all, in terms of highways, having huge lorries driving through residential areas is not something which is acceptable. The noise and disturbance of having such a site, both from the lorries and from the waste processing, smells and fumes that will come from processing that waste. The physical infrastructure, including the cables that were mentioned underground, and hazardous materials that might be stored there. And finally, the really key point, I think, that a waste disposal site, a planning application such as this, is really incompatible with a residential area and the harm that brings to families and children. And I think that we have declared a climate emergency as a town council, as indeed of Cheshire East Council. And this is exactly the sort of planning application that would lead to more noise, dust, fumes and air pollution. I therefore second the proposal made by Councillor Harewood that we should oppose this application.
Thank you.
Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. You are Councillor Wilson, aren't you? Yes. We can move on now. We have we said that we will oppose this, refuse this application? Right.
So you have a proposer and a seconder to object this application.
Yes. Are we going to bring that to the vote?
You will need to vote for, against, and abstentions.
So can we have a vote in favor of this application, please? Or who's voting in favor of the application? Can we see those who vote in favor? Or can you see that?
Well, we're seeking now a vote in favour of an objection to this application, please, members, if you can hear me.
Yeah.
Those in favour of objecting, I can see unanimous hands raised there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chair, we now move on. Sorry, I have Councillor Wilson wishing to return in public session.
Have we still got public, are we still on public section?
We're still in
here?
public session. We haven't
Right, the third
reconvened yet.
speaker? Who is it,
Councillor
please?
Wilson.
Councillor
Councillor
Wilson.
Wilson.
Yes,
Right.
it's Fiona Raylift. Now we've made a unanimous decision that we agree to oppose this application. I would like to put forward that I would speak at Northern Planning when this application comes forward on behalf of the Town Council.
Would second that, Councillor Wilson, that I see no reason why you should not speak on the application at Northern Planning. I see no reason. So
that can be taken as agreement.
an agreement.
Yeah, and therefore we can reconvene and move into the meeting agenda, although Councillor Edwards wishes to speak, so I'll unmute Councillor Edwards. Councillor Edwards.
That I will also be attending the Northern Planning meeting, and I reserve the right to speak at it. Thank you.
As a Cheshire East Councillor.
As a Cheshire East Councillor.
Thank you. Chair, as we return to the meeting agenda, we reconvene the meeting, and I hand over to you.
Thanks very much. We are at item 3, meeting of the Planning Committee held on February 28th to consider it as a true record. Shall we say, can we have a vote on that as a true record, please? Who was here on the 28th of February? Those in favour?
All present, those in favour. That's unanimous there, Chair.
Thank you. Any matters arising from the minutes, please? I have no matters arising from it. Does anybody else has any matters arising?
You
No?
can take that, Chair.
Thank you. We move on to 5, which is the observation on planning applications. And first we have application 19/3097M. Reserve matters.
This relates to Mr. Slater's comments in public speaking, Chair.
Yes. Shall I read out the application?
You
Yes.
can do, no necessary. It's your choice.
Does anybody want to speak on that? Because I would like to speak on that, please. I would like to speak on that application.
Please go ahead, Chair.
Thank you very much. While I listened to Mr. Slater, in the first place, it is not Greenbelt. That was one of the submissions made. It is not Greenbelt, and planning does not go on to what is the developer's business and how they sell their houses. We must return and stay with this planning application. And I do respect that Harriet made a number of observations, and I will go to those observations. In the first place, about the schools, Cheshire East has published that there are enough school places in Cheshire for primary schools. And 98% of families have had their schools, the allocated schools given to them. When it comes to secondary schools, this is has to be demonstrated accurately for the future. And while it may be so, it has not been demonstrated that the secondary schools will not have places, because currently that is not the position. And I do regret that we are not seeing the coming generation as a population to remain in this town for its sheer viability. Thirdly, I don't know what is meant by care facilities. It has not been defined, and because care facilities takes many forms. It takes the form of primary care, surgery, pharmacy, home care, self-care, visiting online care. What care are we talking about? Because there's a significant amount of care given at home. So I did not see anything in the word care facilities. Because if we're talking of care homes, these are private chain businesses, and they ought to give some kind of document to say they wouldn't have anybody else. I don't think care facilities has been defined. Again, we talk about buses. I don't know that the buses are overcrowded because the buses are still not yet a community asset. They are not really linked to planning, and they're private businesses. And the high density of that area that argument cannot be sustained, because in that area, there's just one house along the roads. So high density, I don't know that it can be, as an argument, sustained. I don't know, I'm sure flooding cannot be sustained, because in the recent rains, that was not one of the area flooded because it was quickly drained away. I think in this application, we must make, however, very strong conditions. Inclusion of transport, which is not a planning item at this time. Protection of hedgerows and protected trees must be done. Conservation must be done by the advice of the conservation officer. Water courses must be submitted, and cycling and footpaths are already in. I think on a matter of planning for 134 houses, I cannot support a refusal of this application. Thank you.
Chair, we have waiting to speak councillors Ed, then Wilson, then Roberts at the minute. So first I'll unmute Councillor Edwards.
Thank you, committee. First of all, A-Lift mentions about the buses not being full. Well, there aren't all that many buses, are there? Let's face it. They're being reduced all the time. The Saturday service, I think, is gone now, is it? The Stockport bus that went through Wilmstone, Alderley Edge and so on. I have a slight interest in this, in that when I came back to the UK, I lived in opposite the Cock Inn on Shelford Road, and I used to walk in those fields, and I was party to planting all the trees at the back there, which were only recent, and they're going to be decimated. They're going to be taken out, and we're being offered, I think, 26 trees instead or something. And we planted hundreds of them there. Again, I would like to reiterate, we did speak about this before we went on air, about the amount of peat that has to be taken out of the site. Many, many years ago, I had a pub, and just close to the pub, there was a site where they put in for planning permission to take the peat out of the land. Funnily enough, the land was actually owned by His Majesty the Prince of Wales, who's always into conservation and so on. The planning permission was given for this peat extraction, and it made a real mess of the land. A wood literally collapsed because of the extraction of the peat there. Everything dried out. It was absolutely terrible. And I can see all sorts of problems, and I think it's totally against the council's ethos to actually extract this 5,000 cubic meters of peat. I can see it all finishing up in garden centres at a huge profit when it should be part of our biodiversity. I've mentioned the trees. The schools, there are, I think, 3 or 4 planning permissions in at the moment for increased classrooms, including 7 emergency, they call it emergency classrooms at Titherington School, Titherington High School, if there were adequate places everywhere, they wouldn't be building 7 more emergency classrooms. As I understand it, Henbury Primary School is full. There's no space on the land to build any more classrooms, even to have porter cabins and things there. So these kids are either going to have to be bused or driven or walk along Chelford Road, which is one hell of a road, quite honestly. I just don't accept this story that, oh, we've got enough school places. I just don't accept it. Something that hasn't been mentioned, although I think it is important, is that we were promised a proper survey and plans and so on for the roundabout, for the coming under transport of Broken Cross. Broken Cross roundabout and the entrance into Macclesfield is hell. It's hell at the moment. I don't know what it's going to be like in the future. And this plan, I can actually remember going back to when Broken Cross was a simple crossroads before the roundabout was put there. It was terrible then. They put a roundabout in, it's a little bit better. This idea of lights is going to be murder, as far as I can see. I read through the papers last night, and as far as I know, this was supposed to be surveyed on a normal working day to view the traffic coming through this roundabout. When the survey originally was done, it was when Fallibroom was either on holiday or they were sitting exams or whatever, and there was something like 50% reduction in traffic. When this survey is done, I ask that it is done outside the times of coronavirus, when there's normal traffic there, and I would like to see proper plans drawn up. This was part of the original planning permission, and it hasn't been done. And I think that's all I want to say. Thank you very much.
Chair, we have now Councillor Wilson waiting to speak. Councillor Wilson.
Okay, thank you. Just going back to our planning committee meeting on the 19th of July 2019, we as a town council planning committee objected to this application 193098, and we made 12 different points. Although the planning application has been agreed, which was against our wishes, we're now being asked under this particular agenda item to look at reserved matters. Mr. Slater has gone through a number of those points that we now need to address as a planning committee today to continue our opposition to this development and the areas which are now being looked at under reserved matters. Before going through those points, I think we should reiterate, we've already taken this decision on these points, but I think we should re-emphasise in responding to the reserved matters request a number of points. And I do so on the basis that we have, as a town council, declared an environmental emergency. We've also taken a decision that one of our key activities for the next number of years will be to create a forest for the future, to plant trees all over Macclesfield or a parish wards to improve air quality. And so to remove a significant forest planted by the community, as Councillor Edwards has outlined, and replace it with 20 trees is absolutely against our Forest for the Future policy as a town council. I think that there's a number of things that have to be agreed prior to first occupation, and I haven't seen any evidence that these are in place. There's a travel plan to include cycle and pedestrian routes, electrical vehicle charging points, and I can't see any evidence that those have been included. But I do think we should go back to our decision of July 2019, and we should object to the reserved matters application on the basis of the lack of cycling and pedestrian routes, the increase of traffic on already congested highways, the removal of trees and hedges that will result in the loss of wildlife habitat, and concerns about the risk of flooding, which directly relates to the point Mr. Slater made about the removal of peat. So in moving these 4 points, I am reiterating what we as a town council decided already, and I would propose that we go forward with reminding the planning authorities that those were our 4 points of objection on these areas now being requested under reserved matters.
Chair, we now have Councillor Roberts waiting to speak. Councillor Roberts.
Thank you, Chair. I don't want to go over the points that the previous councillors have already raised. The pressure on the existing infrastructure, the services, the networks is going to be absolutely massive. We're all familiar with those, so I'm not going to reiterate. My grave concern is that these applications, and we're not going to overturn them because it's been given outline planning, and this is obviously for reserve matters we can press. But my grave concern is for these developments once they're finished, as we are, myself and Councillor Edwards are finding out on a regular basis. These developments are look good on paper. They promise the world, they promise the earth for schools, transport, hospitals, community services, shops, pubs, whatever, and then they just basically take the money and run away, and it's left to people like the residents to go down the legal route of trying to correct the mistakes that these developers have made, when really the planners are failing. It's almost a dereliction of duty at times, and this would be, in my view, yet another example of this, where you're going to be talking best part of 400 houses, Mr. Slater quoted earlier on. We're going to be short of school places, hence the number of applications, as Councillor Edwards stated, for temporary classrooms. And I think as a council, we've got to take a stance on it, because as Councillor Edwards knows, and he'll probably agree with me, we are finding that the planning people are just, it is almost a dereliction of duty in my opinion, and it's something that as well as all the points correctly stated by Councillor Wilson and Councillor Edwards, it's the aftermath that worries me, and this could be yet another example of that. So I really, on another part, I'd like the Town Council to, I don't know how we're going to do it, but collectively come to some agreement so we can follow up where Cheshire East planners are failing in their duty. Thank you.
Thank you. We also have Councillor Jackson waiting to speak, which, there we are, Councillor Jackson.
Thank you. Yes, well, I totally agree with everything that's been said really by Councillor Roberts and Councillor Wilson, Councillor Edwards, that, you know, we originally objected to this application at its outline, and as to the reserve matters, in principle, I think we obviously still, you know, object to the development on the site, but it is difficult to identify the reasons. But Councillor Wilson has done that, those 4 reasons for objection that we can give. It's just how strong is that objection in the face of the planners and the developers, and that is what I'm concerned about. And Councillor Harewood mentioned conditions, and I don't know whether there is something we can do about suggesting some conditions on this reserve matters application. So that is a thought. There may be something we can put on this, but it's really, I suppose, not for us to suggest conditions. It's usually the planning authority that does that. So whether we can actually do that, I'm not sure. But as it stands at the moment, I'm quite happy to second the proposal from Councillor Wilson. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jackson. Councillor,
Thank you.
you have a proposal and a second.
Before the proposal, sorry, before the proposal, whatever it turns out to be, I would like to balance what was said against our dire housing shortage. That does not mean that we put houses everywhere, but we have a national housing shortage. And I'm continuously reminded of people who are a whole generation who are living with no access or poor access to housing, when houses that can be built safely and securely and usefully for people, we must put houses with conditions. I cannot see why, if those conditions are met, they cannot be supported. I will have to stand by the decision, but in this dire national housing shortage, I cannot support refusal when conditions like these are put on them. Thank you. So can we go to the vote now, please?
Chair, you do have Councillor Roberts wishing to return. Is that okay?
Yes, that's fine.
Yeah, I'd just like to say that I agree wholeheartedly with you there, Chair. But unfortunately, conditions of planning applications often include 30% social housing. And we're getting developers now, we're having it in our ward now where people are scrapping, they're nailing down the landowners to, or the planners to 5% and less social housing. So I think that rules out. I agree with you. Although we do have it, I think it's a 7-year land supply, land supply. We do need houses, but we need affordable houses. We don't need £300,000, £400,000, £500,000 houses as are being built, and with the obvious absence of social housing. Thank you.
Chair, you have a proposal and a seconder. Would you like to take that to the vote, Councillor Wilson?
Yes, the proposal is for refusal.
Can I ask Councillor Wilson to repeat her proposal, please?
Yes, so my proposal is that we reiterate our opposition to the application that we made on the 19th of July 2019, and that we ask for, under the reserved matters we're now being asked to look at, that we return to item 2, lack of cycle and pedestrian routes, item 3, increase of traffic on already congested highways, item 10, removal of trees and hedges that will result in the loss of wildlife habitat, and item 11, concerns on the risk of flooding in the development area once the hard standing has been completed, which actually does include the point about peat removal that Mr. Slater made.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. Chair, would you like to put that to the vote?
Well, can I come in here? Does that sum up a refusal?
It's an objection. We can't refuse. We're a consultee.
An objection. Okay. Yes.
Yeah, so if you wish me to summarise again, Chair.
No. I just want to know if that sums up an objection to the application. And it's
second
yes.
Objection to the application. Yes.
Yes. Do we have a seconder?
Yes.
Yeah, Councillor Jackson. Yes, so we put it to the vote, please, Chair.
Yes, please.
Those in favour? Raise your hands. Thank you. Those against? And there are no other votes left, so that's carried by 4-1.
Thank you.
Move on to the next application, and thank Mr. Slater, who will now be able to follow the meeting online if he chooses.
The second application here we have is application 20/1442M, and it is extension to existing residential building to form 17 new apartments, alteration to shopfront previously approved under 18/6076M, Craven House, Churchill Way, Macclesfield. Do we have any speakers?
Okay, I'll go with Councillor Jackson, please, and then Councillor Edwards.
Thank you. This application is on Central Ward. I think everyone will have seen it progressing. We've had all the scaffolding up outside for quite a while now. And this is for a further change to this application, or addition to this building, where the frontage where the old post office was, that's to change that into retail, cafe, I think, as well, and also then an extension on the floor, the top floor. There's going to be a further number of units up there, like sort of penthouse area. This had been under delegated, reserve matter, not reserve matters. Sorry, what's the one where they can really have a permission that they can go ahead with without coming to the authority?
Permitted development.
Permitted, that's right, permitted development. They had quite a lot of this application was permitted development, but for these changes they've had to come to the authority. The comment I have on it is that a lot of the units are very small. They're called non-standard one-bed units, which does mean they're like a bed sit and they are small. But we need the housing, and I feel that they're going to be market housing as well, so they're not going to be social housing. But I do feel there's a need for housing in the town. They do fulfill that need. Although there is no parking with them, which of course is a case with flats in converted mills or other large buildings, we have to accept that. I feel that on balance, I'm happy to support this application. Thank you.
Any other speakers?
Councillor Edwards wish to speak. I'll just unmute him. There you go, Councillor Edwards.
Thank you very much. First of all, on the point of the parking, provided we don't bring in 24-hour parking charges and Sunday parking and so on, though there will be parking of sorts, certainly in the evenings and weekends on Churchill Way. And I don't know if there will be some sort of dispensation for the residents. It would be nice if there was, and you just walk across Churchill Way. A couple of sort of admin things, really. One is a lot of these applications that are coming up actually say on the portal that they're delegated powers. They've been given to delegation. I want to be clear that when we're talking about them today, that we supersede that delegation. We are actually discussing making the objections, and it isn't delegated. And the last thing, and with excuse me, with the deepest respect to A-Lift, could I ask that to save time we don't read out the descriptions to each one, as we agreed before the meeting started? Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Jackson wanted to come back in, Chair.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Yes, just on that point about delegated, Councillor Edwards, it is a delegated application. What that means is it's delegated to an officer to make the decision rather than it going to committee. So it's we have, it's very important that we make our comments on these, because the officer will take the comments into consideration when they make their decision on the application. So that's what delegated means. It's just for the benefit of everyone on the committee, really, that delegated means it's to the delegated to an officer rather than to the a committee, Northern obviously, or strategic. And we make our comments as a consultee, and they take that into consideration when they are making their decision on the application. Thank you.
And
Thank
to
you.
clarify, is an officer of Cheshire East Council the planning authority, not this council?
Okay, thank you. We move on to application 19
Oh, sorry, Chair. Councillor Edwards would like to come back if that's okay.
All right. Yes, Councillor Edwards.
Yes, so just to be clear on that, with this delegation, so if we don't like it, we can call them in.
Chair, if I may, Chair, just to try and add some clarity, Macclesfield Town Council is a consultee in planning applications to the local planning authority, which is Cheshire East Council. As you are a councillor on both councils, you have the opportunity within the policies of Cheshire East Council to call in applications in Cheshire East. This committee does not have any powers to do that. It can only respond as a consultee to the planning authority. Is that okay?
Yes, I understand. I worded it badly. I do apologise.
It's okay. Thank you. Sorry, Chair. You might want to seek, are there any proposals associated with that application?
Do we seek a vote on this?
Well, I've had no proposals, I don't think. Have we had a proposal?
Have we had a proposal?
I propose that we have no objection to this application.
Councillor Roberts is there as well.
Second that.
Thank you.
Can we have a vote on that, please?
All those in favour? We have a unanimous vote. Thank you, members.
Thank you. We move on to application 19/5838M, on which I have a non-pecuniary interest, but stated that I am in approval of this development from the pub to 10 supported apartments. I don't know if anybody wishes to speak on that, but I wouldn't say any more. Thank you.
Councillor Wilson wishes to come in, and then Councillor Roberts, Chair, if that's okay.
Yes, that's fine.
Councillor Wilson?
Yes, I just wanted to make a couple of our usual comments on these type of applications, that there are no electrical vehicle charging points I can see in the application, so I think we need to we need to make a comment on that. There are also environmental and highways comments on the application about some of the issues with the parking spaces. I think we should back up the environmental and highways statement about parking spaces. Parking is one of the issues that we have with developments of this nature. So I have no objections to this particular application. In fact, we've previously supported it when it came before us back in January. At our January meeting, we raised no objections, but we noted that the number of apartments was greater than the limit set by Class C3, which we haven't been able to clarify that due to the current COVID crisis. But we also thought that the development included electrical vehicle charging points and the sprinkler system. So I would like us to reinforce the comments that we made back in January 2020 about this application.
Councillor Roberts, please.
Yeah, thanks. I just support what Councillor Wilson's just said. I do support this application. I'm all in favour of independent living with a strong social care network. So, yeah, I have no objections to this application. Thank you.
Are we ready to call the vote on that? Have you seconded that, Councillor? Have you seconded that, Councillor Roberts? Has that been seconded?
Yes,
Yeah.
that's been seconded. Councillor Roberts has seconded that.
Okay. Are we calling for a vote now? In favour of that? I'm in favour of it, of course. I've already said that.
Yes.
I'm not.
That's
voting.
unanimous. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
That's unanimous, though, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, lovely. We go on to application 20/1357M. Have you any speakers to that application?
Councillor Jackson wishes to speak, Chair.
Yes, yes.
So, having looked at this, I can see no problem with it, and so I would propose that the council has no objection to this application.
Anyone else?
Councillor Wilson wishes to speak, Chair.
Yes.
Yes, I would second the proposal made by Councillor Jackson. This is actually on South Ward, and there are no objections to it. So I second Councillor Jackson's proposal.
Thank you. Are we calling for the vote now, please?
Yes, please, Chair.
Those in favour?
That's unanimous. Thank you.
Oh, this has stopped. I'm sorry, I'm having trouble. Application number 21/1312M. Anyone wishes to speak on that one?
Chair, we have Councillor Edwards.
Yes, Councillor Edwards. Can I hear you?
I've read through the application. There are a couple of comments, stroke objections to it. One is they're asking why we are using, or Tidrington Club are using, a fossil fuel generator, and one comment about the actual placing of it and screening of it by tree. But in general, I have no objection to it.
So do we have a seconder?
Councillor Jackson wishes to return.
Yes.
Thank you. I wanted to speak on this one. Having looked at it and seen the comments by the Cheshire East officers, they are recommending refusal on the grounds of air quality. This is the Environmental Health Department. On air quality, because this generator doesn't meet the low NOx emissions that are required. There's also a noise impact on the residential amenity, and this application, this developer needs to submit a noise impact assessment and also hours of operation of this generator. So as it stands at the moment, I would be asking for refusal, and I would propose refusal on those grounds. Thank you.
Councillor Roberts would like to come in, Chair.
Yes.
Again, I referred to what I said earlier. It's the developers failing to fulfil their obligations. It's a case of after the horse has bolted, once again, they promise the earth and they come up with something substandard in the wrong place, not fulfilling the promises made to local residents who they look to support these applications. Although I'm not against it, I would just like, again, raise that point of developers not fulfilling their obligations. Thank you.
So you're not seconding that refusal, are you, Councillor Roberts? Have you seconded it or not?
The refusal?
Yes. Councillor Jackson has put up a proposal for refusing that application.
No, I won't second a refusal.
Is there anyone else to speak? Is there anyone else who wishes to speak?
Doesn't seem so. I can't see a seconder for the proposal.
I will second.
Okay, the chair has seconded the proposal.
I will second that refusal.
It's an objection for clarity, not a refusal.
Yes. Okay, an objection for clarity.
So you have now a proposal and a seconder, Chair. You're welcome
Yes.
to move that.
Are we ready to move for the vote, please?
Yes, Chair.
Those in favour?
That's 2.
Those against?
Those against? 0.
So is that carried? Any abstention?
Yeah.
Those abstaining?
Now we have 3 abstentions. That motion is carried.
Okay, thank you. Application 20/1409M. Any speakers on that one? Any speakers?
Councillor Jackson is there, Chair.
Thank you.
Yes.
I have no objection to this extension, so I'd move no objection.
Anyone else?
Councillor Edwards wishing to.
I wish to.
Councillor Edwards would like to.
I would wish to second Janet on this one. It's in Lloyd's and my patch, and there are no objections, and I have no objection to it. Thank you.
Shall we go to the vote?
Sure.
Yes, those in favour? No objections?
That's unanimous of your hands in there, Chair.
Yes, thank you very much.
Chair, if I may interject for a second, on applications where the committee is making no objection, no comment, there's no need to take a vote. It's just no. If there's no objection, no comments to make on the application, the committee can move on to the application. It doesn't require a resolution to make no comment.
No. Okay, application 20/1455M. Any speakers in that?
Councillor Edwards would like to come in.
Just to
Yes.
say that that's in Lloyd's and my patch, and I've got no objection.
Any other speaker?
No other speakers, Chair.
Well,
Might want to next application.
shall we say there is
I
no
would
objection?
note that there's no objection, Chair.
No objection. No objection.
Note.
Application 20/1461M, Brocklehurst Avenue. Any speakers on that? Any speakers on that?
Councillor Jackson wishes to come in.
Yes.
Again, another application for an extension. I have no objection.
Anyone else?
No, Chair. It seems like there's no
objection. No?
That's correct, Chair. I agree with no objection.
No objection. Application 20/1490M. Are there any speakers on that?
We have two speakers, Councillor Jackson and Councillor Wilson.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. This application is on Central Ward. It was a former kitchen showroom on Chestergate, and this application is asking to convert it into 8 residential units with a small kitchen and a cafe bar on the ground floor. I totally object to this application. I've read what the officers have said on the report, and there is housing, definitely object to it. There is inadequate kitchen facilities proposed for this 8-bed, what is in effect an HMO, with a very small kitchen. It's not possible to run a building like this with those facilities. So I object on those grounds, even though we do need housing, but it's what type of housing do we need? We still have to keep some sort of standards and control over it. Also, there is an objection to the roof light, which is out of keeping with the conservation area. So that again is also another reason to object. That's what I'm proposing to the town council, that we object on those grounds. There are also issues about access around the back for waste storage and access to waste. So there are concerns about that also, for the impact on the amenity of the neighbours. So those are the comments I'd like to make. Thank you.
Councillor Wilson was next to speak, Chair.
Yes, please.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I would like to second the objection to this application from Councillor Jackson. The reason she has covered, I completely agree with. Want to make some, re-emphasise a couple of points and make some additional points. This is currently under planning category B8, which is storage or distribution, because as Councillor Jackson said, it was previously a former kitchen showroom, and it did have one flat above it. That one flat is being converted to 8 flats, and the size of those flats I've got caused comment from planning already. It's now being categorised as a sui generis, which is where a planning category that you can't, one of the ones where you put things that you can't apply. But I think it looks to me like it's going to be more of a home of multiple occupation. And there are conservation issues, as Councillor Jackson's stated, and there's clearly parking issues as well. So I second the proposal to object to this application.
Thank you, Councillor. I'd like to speak on that, please.
Yes, Chair. We have Councillor Edwards waiting, but you're the Chair.
Who's waiting to speak?
Councillor Edwards.
Oh, I'll have Councillor Edwards and then I'll say some summing up on those speakers. Councillor Edwards, please.
Yeah, perhaps I've missed something here, but with this premises, are they intending to have any flats on the ground floor? Are we going to be losing shop space as well as upstairs space? They're keeping the ground floor, are they? Yeah, I think Fiona knows the answer.
The proposal for the ground floor is a cafe bar, a shared workspace and a small kitchen for guests. So the apartments are on the first and second floor. On the ground floor is going to be cafe bar, shared workspace and small kitchen for guests.
Thank you. Thank you.
Councillor Edwards.
Bar coming, that's going to be open to the general public, is it? It's just that I'm a bit worried. I used to have a shop on Chestergate, and there's a few places where we're losing shop frontage, and it's quite a nice frontage there. But if it's going to be open to the general public in a cafe, that's fine with me. Thank you. Well, I'm going to object anyway.
Thank you. I'd like to speak on this. Am I in?
You're ready to go, Chair.
I'm ready to go. I am against allowing people to live like that. I'm against the fact that we are making not houses, but little rooms for people. And the very fact that housing informs health, well-being, ability to thrive, I am totally against this multiple housing where nameless and faceless people will not, it will be difficult to thrive. I don't know what a small kitchen is for guests. How do you define a small kitchen? I shall never know. And who the guests are, I don't know how they will use it. But this application goes against humanity, never mind the council. It goes against all that makes us people. And I am happy to object to this application and to support the refusal. Thank you.
Chair, you may choose to take this to the vote now.
Yes. Who's moving the refusal?
Councillor Jackson, seconded by Councillor.
Can we call for the vote now, please?
Yes, Chair. Those in favour of objection? That's unanimous, Chair.
Thank you very much. One moment, I'm trying to move this application. Application 20/1537M, Peter Street. Any speakers there, please?
Councillor Jackson wishes to come in.
Yeah.
Thank you. Again, Chairman, this application is on Central Ward on Peter Street for an extension. Having looked at the application, I feel I can support it. I have no objection.
Thank you. Anyone else? No?
Yeah. I think the no objection may be
No
noted
objection.
if you.
So can we do that as no objection?
Yeah, that's a no objection, Chair.
Thank you very much. Application 20/0794M, dormer window on front roof on Fallybroom Road. Any speakers for that?
No speakers, Chair. Oh, we have Councillor.
No, move no objection.
No objection?
No objection can be
Yeah.
noted there, Chair.
Application 21/10/1367M, listed building consent for conversion of existing offices. I should start by saying if it's a listed building, we refer that to the conservation officer. Are there any speakers?
Councillor Jackson waiting to speak, Chair.
Yes, thank you.
Thank
Councillor
you, Chairman. Again, this is on Central Ward. And the conservation officer has already commented on this application, which is for change to the doors. It's just the design of the large sets of doors on that building. And in fact, in my view, I think they're a great improvement.
Good.
So I'm quite happy with it. No objection.
Thank you. No objection. Anyone else?
Councillor Edwards wishes to speak, Chair.
Yes.
I just wanted to say how delighted I am that they're including an adequate sprinkler system in the building.
Thank you very much. No objection then. Can we put it in as no
So
objection?
no objection noted. No objection noted, Chair.
Thank you. Application 20/1561M, single story extension. That one is on Bessick Street. Any speakers?
Councillor Jackson again.
Yes.
And this is on Central Ward. I have no objection.
Anyone else? No objection.
Speakers, Chair.
No speakers?
objection.
Thank you.
No speakers and no objection noted, Chair.
Yes. Emergency accommodation consisting of 6 classrooms, associated toilets and circulation for Titherington School, 20/1576M. Any speakers?
Yes, Chair, you have Councillor Edwards wishing to come in. Councillor Edwards is there.
Yes.
And then Councillor Roberts.
This is on Lloyd's and my patch. They're applying for, I think it's 7 classrooms plus.
6. It says 6 here.
6 is it? I beg your pardon. And 7 extra staff and so on. I've had a couple of objections to it. One of the points is that not all that long ago, the previous administration of Cheshire East cut the school bus that ran from Bollington and areas like that to Titherington High School. As a cost-cutting exercise, they put in this rather lovely, what do you call them, panda crossing, is it, on the Silk Road? I've only ever seen a couple of people actually use it. And the amount of traffic has increased greatly of people going into Titherington School, coming out of Titherington School, parking there and so on. A resident has mentioned that with these extra classrooms, the situation with the parking and the traffic will be even worse. I think somewhere, I believe that it actually says that it's a temporary, but on here and on the original application, it says emergency. I'd like to know what is the difference between temporary and emergency. As I understand it, they're going to be like sort of porter cabins. Somebody actually commented, I think it was Councillor Nick Mannion, that was asking whether they were putting in these so that the main building can be done up or something like that. As I understand it, it's going to be a bit more permanent than that. In general, I'm in favour of it, but with slight reservations, I have to say. Thank you.
Chair, we have Councillor Roberts wishing to speak on that one.
Thank you. Just really going over what David said. It wasn't long ago that the headmaster said that they could cope with any increase in demand when he was questioned about Kingsfield closure, and now we find we need emergency accommodation for up to possibly 180 pupils and their entourage as they enter and leave school. Again, it's going to impact the already traffic problems we have around there. We're just in the process of putting yellow lines because the traffic is horrendous, as it is in every school around the area. So while I'm not against it, I would just air a word of caution, and I'd like to just have a mindful eye on the conservation issues around the school also. Thank you.
Thank you. We then followed by Councillor Wilson and Councillor Jackson after that, please.
Yes, thank you. I mean, I've listened carefully to what Councillor Roberts and Councillor Edwards have said, and I can understand the concerns about the increased traffic, etc., environmental concerns. It doesn't specify in the application that I can see what the emergency accommodation is for. and we speculated that it might be to refurbish the main school. But I did wonder on reading this application whether it was to do with COVID-19 return or something like that, in case when children are safe to go back to school, they need to be socially distancing, etc. So it's not clear that is the case, so it may not be. But we've talked in applications earlier about school places being available in Macclesfield, and we know there's a shortage of school places and kids have got to go to school somewhere. So here the concern's been expressed, but I do support the application on the basis that if we've got children that need educating, we need to educate them as near as possible to where they live, because people travelling all around increases in, vehicle emissions and things like that. So I support the application.
Councillor Jackson wishing to come in, Chair.
Thank you. Yes, I was hoping there might have been some clarity from the ward councillors on this regarding whether it is temporary or not. I would assume that this emergency accommodation, by the effect of that, you do think that means it's only going to be for a period needed for a period of time. And to me, immediately I thought, well, it's to answer the COVID-19 situation where they're going to need distancing, maybe some quarantining type accommodation for certain students, that sort of thing. And I thought that was maybe the reason for this emergency accommodation. If it was to be temporary, one would expect there to be a time limit on it, say for 2 years, and then they would come back for a further permission after the emergency has ended. And so I've got my reservations about this one. It would have been helpful for it to have been a bit clearer, and if there was a time limit on it, whether we can in our comments say in principle we support it, we have no objection, but for clarity it would have been helpful to have some information around that. Thank you.
Thank you. I like to speak now. I like to speak. To my knowledge, past knowledge, all emergency accommodation does carry a time limit. And then they have to reapply for after that time has passed, or in case they want to make it permanent. So I think that's already a part of it. I don't know if we can, in the management of the school, I don't know if it's within our scope, but the school is managing, and maybe we can say, we would like to know what is the time, but I don't know that we have a handle on the management of the school. Thank you. That's all I wish. I don't have any objection because I feel our children are precious and the school has a reputation of good management. And at the moment, I would say it's one of all our schools, all our high schools have good reputation. And unless we have some knowledge of the opposite, I shall support this application.
Yeah, we have Councillor Edwards wishing to return.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Just one simple, if you delve into it, they are intending to take on 7 extra teachers for these classrooms. And I assume that if you're taking on 7 teachers, it's not that temporary. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, are we going to support this application? Can we call a proposal?
We await for a proposal, yes.
Is anybody? I will propose we support it.
Okay, we've got.
Is there a seconder?
Councillor Roberts first, then Councillor Edwards.
No, I should leave it to them. It's it.
Councillor Roberts, you put your hand up.
Yeah, I'll second the chair's proposal.
Okay. Councillor Edwards, you wish to come in at that point or no? Okay. Chair, you have a proposal and a second. Would you like to put that to the vote?
I'll put that to the vote. Can we vote for that, please? I'm voting to support
Those in
it.
favour to support the application? Thank you. That's unanimous.
Thank you. Application 21573M. Acton Avenue. Are there any speakers on that one?
Councillor Jackson,
Yes,
No objection.
no objection. Anyone else? No objection.
there's no objection noted there.
Objection. Can we move on, please?
Please do.
Application 21577M, Ashton House. Any speakers on that?
No speakers. Oh, Councillor Jackson.
Yeah,
Yes, I found this quite a difficult one. There's been quite a number of toing and froing, shall I say, on this one. I just have some concern about this change of condition, which will enlarge the detached garage. I'm a little uneasy with it, and I'm not particularly happy to support it. But I would like to hear what other councillors have to say on it, because it's there's quite an interesting amount of issues around this one. So I'm interested to hear what they say.
Councillor Wilson, followed by Councillor Edwards.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I mean, I share Councillor Jackson's concerns on this, and doing some research into the background of it. Macclesfield Town Council Planning Committee objected to the original application in 2018. At your meeting, I was not a councillor then, but on the 10th of September, the council objected to the application being out of character. The original application was for the garages to be houses rather than garages, and then I think from what I can gather, garages were built, but now this is an application to change the garage size, which seems to me to make the garage a house. Whereas the original application was for a house that was refused, and this application now appears to be to change the layout of the garage that was agreed to be a house. So it seems to me it's like a way of changing what we opposed in 2018. In 2018, we opposed on the basis of overdevelopment. So I would also like to hear what councillors have to say about this. It's on Broken Cross and Upton ward, so it isn't the ward I represent. But I'm minded, in view of the history of this, that we should object on the same basis, overdevelopment. But I would want to hear what other councillors have to say too.
Chair, that was to be followed by Councillor Edwards, please.
Thank you. I found it slightly strange that the Forestry and Nature raised no objections to this planning. I thought it was a little bit strange, and I support Councillor Jackson and Councillor Wilson. I found it a little bit of a funny one, this one. Thank you.
I'll speak on this one to say that, are you with me?
Yes, Chair, we're all with you.
Well, that the horses have bolted, and what we are doing is a variation of condition on what has already been approved. And while I'm uneasy about it, we are only asked for a variation of condition and cannot change what have been approved to already become a house.
Chair,
So,
if I may, the committee can object to that proposal for a variation of condition on the grounds stated, if they in fact believe it is overdevelopment and the principle of using the building for a purpose that it wasn't initially intended.
and what is condition 2? Do we know? Do we know what condition 2 is?
I don't have that in front of me. Does the civic officer have the answer? No.
No.
Wilson.
Well, when looking back at all the applications, condition 2 was that these buildings should be garages rather than a house. And my understanding of looking at this application is the variation is to make a garage a house. And the original planning application was for a house, and that was refused. So, and in 2018, the planning committee objected on the basis it was overdevelopment. I raise all that as background information for councils to decide whether they want to be consistent in raising the overdevelopment issue they raised in 2018, or whether if people view the fact that the horse has bolted. I am just wanting to discuss it with colleagues. I haven't had no representations on this. There's 1 or 2 objections from residents saying that it is now becoming a house when it was supposed to be a garage. But if no one's minded to move anything, we could move on.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. Does anybody else?
Sorry, yeah, Councillor
Yes.
Jackson wishes to return.
Yes, yes.
Well, I'll move that we object on the grounds that we stated previously.
Thank you, Councillor Jackson.
I think Councillor Wilson
And we-
wishes to second. Is that
Do we
correct?
have a seconder?
Yeah, me.
Councillor Wilson, thank you.
Is Councillor Wilson seconding that?
That's correct, yep.
Can we have a vote for refusal?
It's for objection. Those in favour? That's 4. Those
Against?
and abstentions?
Abstentions?
1 abstention. Thank you. That is carried as an objection on the grounds of overdevelopment.
Okay. We carry, oh, what's this? Sorry, I'm trying to move on. Oh. Application 20/1579M. Any speakers there?
Councillor Wilson, Chair.
This
Yes.
application is for a single-storey rear extension on South Ward, where I represent, and I have no objections.
Thank you.
Councillor
Anyone
Edwards
else?
wishes to come.
Reading through the papers, I did note that somewhere it says that perhaps the land is contaminated and needs a report or something like that. Am I right? But in principle, I've got no objection.
I have no objection. Shall we put that down as no objection?
We can note no
Is it
objection.
Former
Chair.
larger kitchen.
That's correct.
Application 20/1578M. Again, we have emergency classrooms for new pupil intake, Park Lane School. Any speakers?
We have Councillor Jackson, Chair.
Yes?
Thank you, Chair. This again is on Central Ward, Park Lane Special School. Emergency temporary classrooms. So they do say it's temporary, although again, I couldn't see any end date to that. But I certainly support this one. Again, looking after children with special needs, they already need certain treatments and areas, larger areas. So this will help them get those students back to school and give them the facilities that are required. So I fully support this. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else?
No,
No,
Chair. I think we can note no
No, I would
objection.
like to say that our children, our special needs children, have formerly been bused to places far away from where they live. And I welcome this because it is the effort to make children who live locally to be schooled locally. And so I support the application. So we have no objections.
No objections noted, Chair.
Thank you. So we'll pass on. We don't need a vote. Application for 20/1598M. Any speakers there?
Councillor Edwards, Chair.
Yes.
I just did note with this boundary fence that there was a possibility of gas pipes running underneath it or something. Am I right, Janet? Did you read this? Just a little slight concern that they're not going to drill down into a gas pipe when they're putting up the fence. But other than that, I've got no objection.
No.
Councillor Jackson.
Yeah, I did note that Cadence had given the gas had given a comment. It does happen quite often on applications that they will give a comment, and it is actually quite a standard comment when they have gas pipes running under a development area. They will give that notification, be aware, obviously report back to us if there are any issues. So it's quite a standard thing, really. Yeah, but I did note that, yes.
We have Councillor Roberts speak, Chair.
No, I just have no objection.
Councillor Roberts wishes to speak, Chair.
Just a comment, really, regarding the appearance of these fences. I noticed from the plan it's 2.4 metres high, and it's quite a substantial fence around the property. I know that it's 2020, they've got to look after their assets, and I'm assuming that's the key to putting the fence up. But having travelled many times to other schools around Cheshire East with the work that I do, and one or two do have fences like this, and it gives the impression of not a warm, welcoming sort of site, more of a secure unit. On a small scale, but this is obviously on a large scale. I'm just wondering if they obviously have looked at alternatives, but it doesn't give the impression of a warm, welcoming sort of environment. It's more of a secure unit, if you like. Just a passing comment. Thank you.
Yeah, Councillor Jackson would like to return.
Thank you. Actually, just following on from that, Councillor Roberts, maybe it could, a suggestion could be that they look at landscaping and do some planting that might just soften that outlook and make it a little less like like you say, a secure unit. I mean, that might be something which the planning officers can think about on future applications, that they maybe do suggest something like that to just help a bit. Just a thought.
Otherwise, we have no objection to it.
You have no objection, Chair, although the committee may seek to request consideration of landscaping.
Thank you. Can we put that on? Yes.
Yes, you can request the consideration of
Yes.
landscaping. You can't.
Yes.
But you can,
So
that can be noted as well, Chair. Doesn't require a vote.
yes. Yes. Thank you. We go to application 21/20/1509M. Permanent building to house the church office. Any speakers in that?
Councillor Wilson is there, Chair.
Yes.
Yes, I have no objections, Chair. It's nice to see an application where all the public comments are in favour of support.
Good. No objection. Anyone else?
No, I think we have no objection to be noted there, Chair.
No, thank you very much. And we have application 20/1643W. Any speakers?
Councillor Jackson is coming in, Chair, and Councillor
Yes.
Wilson.
Thank you. Yeah, I have no objection to this. It was quite an interesting application. I did think that the W was wrong and it should have been an M, like all the other applications.
Yes, yes.
I thought, oh, there's a mistyping here.
Yes.
So that threw me a little bit. Yes, quite interesting this. I think I certainly have no objections to it. Interesting to see that we think this, the gas from the landfill could go on past 2060. So it's quite a, that's quite a significant period of time. So I certainly, I'll support that management.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, any other speakers?
Councillor Wilson wishes to join.
Yes,
I agree with Councillor Jackson. It was a very interesting read, and outline planning permission was granted many years ago. So no objections from me either.
thank you. Any
No
other
objections can be noted.
speakers? No objections.
No objections can be noted, Chair. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Application 20/1650M.
Councillor Wilson wishes to speak, Chair.
Yes,
This is an application for multifunctional classroom accommodation for the Ashgrove Academy, which is in South Ward, and I have no objection.
anyone else?
No, Chair. I think no objections can be noted.
No objection, no objection. Application 20/1662M, proposed outbuilding to form home office.
I think I've comment from Councillor Jackson, Chair.
Yeah,
Thank you. This is an application for an outbuilding to form an office. It's in the back garden of a property on Bond Street. This is an application which Cheshire East Councillor Liz Braithwaite commented on and is objecting to. I did also have a concern about this outbuilding, that it does seem rather large for an office, but the main consideration is the fact that it includes a toilet and shower. I can understand possibly a toilet for people who are working in an office outside their own property, but a shower just seems unusual. And the kitchenette as well. And it just does lead one to think that there might be another, an ulterior motive possibly, you know, that people do ask for things and with a view to then changing the use. And so it's really a matter of maybe in our comment to I don't have a problem with it. I won't be objecting to it, but I would like a condition to say either that it's for the use of the owner of that property, so it's their sole use. I don't quite know. Not too sure about the planning, you know, the planning rules on it, but that it could be there for their use associated with the property, and that it could not be given a change of use to residential. So those are the things that I would like to see if we can have some form of condition on it, or at least message from us that these are our concerns and this is what we would like to see. So I'd like to hear what the other councillors think on this one.
all right. Anyone else?
Chair, we have Councillor Roberts, followed by Councillor Wilson, please.
Thank you.
Really just to confirm what Councillor Jackson's just said, that whilst of no objection, I'd be cautious about an application coming in further down the line for a change of use into residential. Exactly what you said, Janet, is exactly what I'm thinking. So it's just a passing comment. Thank you.
Now we'll move to Councillor Wilson, Chair.
Yeah.
Yes, I second the proposal from Councillor Jackson that we support we have no objections to the application, but we wish a condition to be on future use, that the home office doesn't become like a small flat or something like that. There should be use from home office to accommodation, basically.
Chair, if I may, just to clarify, and not to prejudice the application which will be made in its appropriate manner, that the structure could theoretically be applied at a later date for, or could be used for overnight stay accommodation, and a request that is restricted through the conditions of an application could be made as part of our submission on this.
I'm quite in agreement with what has said. What I don't know is how we will know when it is. Though that's not the point at the moment. How will we know when it has been turned into accommodation? How will we know? Who will tell? Who will say? What, when we put on a condition that it must not be turned into domestic use, I don't know how we will know that. I really don't. But as it has, for which it has been applied, I have no objection. The transfer into domesticity is what I don't know we can manage. But as it stands, I have no objection. Does anybody want to come back?
You have a proposal and a second. You have a proposal and a second for no objection, but seek that conditions are put in place to
Yes.
Overnight accommodation use or use for alternative accommodation.
Yes.
Okay.
Have you got a proposal and a
Yes, you've got a
second?
second. Councillor Jackson, followed by Councillor Wilson. Yeah.
Shall
So
we
you might
put
want
that
to
to
put
the vote? Shall we put that to the vote now, please? Okay, all in favour? Those in favour?
With your hand, Chair, that's unanimous.
Okay. Application 21682M, and that is the application for which I commented. I will say that I have commented in the positive. I think the land is there, even though it was previously garden, but it's an end garden. And the land is there and it can accommodate a 2-bedroom house. So that's my comment on that. If anybody else wants to comment, I will listen.
Councillor Jackson, Chair, and then Councillor Wilson, Chair.
Yeah. Knowing the area, Chairman, I'm sure you can probably answer this. I looked at the plan, the outline plan of the property, the proposed property and the neighbouring property. And there was just one minor concern I had, which was how the next door, the original residential property, how would they access their back garden if they had their bins out there or whatever? How could they access the back garden from outside the property, and therefore to be able to get their bins onto the street for collection and not have to drag them through the house? I just wasn't clear with the plans that had been submitted how open that area of land at the back was for access for those people in the existing property. And you may well be able to answer that, Chairman, knowing the area. But other than that, I don't have any objection. Thank you.
Thank you. I can't, in fact, I can't answer that question. How the bins will go out, because I am thinking that, without being told, that the house proposed is part of the property of the house that is already there. That the house is already there is owned, and the house proposed is a part of that family's business, family's accommodation, which it has the space. It already has the space, and that accommodation will be done with the building. So I cannot answer how it will be managed, but I'm thinking that that area of building and building on is not unusual around the estate, and maybe they have already decided how they'll do that. How precisely they will do that, I don't know.
A little out of sequence, Chair. Sorry, a little out of sequence, Chair. Councillor Jackson just wants to clarify.
Yes.
Can I just come back then? It was only that looking at the plans, there is a boundary line down the garden splitting the new property from the original property. that
Yeah.
garden. It splits the garden, there is a boundary line. And my concern was that if a boundary fence were to be put up, how then would the residents in the original property be able to have access round to
their back.
fronts, yeah, from, taking their bins. So that was a concern. And you have to just think about what may happen in the future. It's
Of course.
at the moment with the it being family in both properties, but at some point they could be sold. And if there was a boundary fence put in, that was just a question. I just wanted
No.
I couldn't
But-
speak to plans. Okay, thank you.
Well, we can put a condition. We can put a condition on that to say that they must show, it must be clearly defined how, I know you looked at the plans, but some clear definition must be made on taking out of the bins on both properties. Can we put a condition on that?
We can request that, Chair. We can't put the
Yes,
condition on that power.
that's a clear defining way of exiting the bins must be made for individual properties. And Councillor Jackson is quite right.
Chair, we have Councillor Wilson followed by Councillor Roberts now.
Yes, Councillor Wilson.
Yeah, looking at the block plan, as Councillor Jackson said, it's one large area of land with a house on it. Looking at the proposed plans, there's a dotted line down the middle that would appear to suggest there's going to be a boundary fence between the two. There's car parking in the middle, and it seems to me that there probably would be space to bring the bins through from the outside to the back to the front. But it wouldn't do any harm to say that we would like to, like it noted that we would wish that we would wish there to be access from the outside of the back to the outside of the front to bring the bins around. I originally put my hand up to raise a separate point. And that was about, I have no objections to the proposal, but it's one of these ones, it's similar to the ones on Southwood that we discussed earlier. The environmental and planning has said there may be contaminated land, and I think in response to Councillor Edwards' question earlier, I sometimes think depending on the location of the property, they always do put the marker down to say there might be contaminated land underneath, and if you find any, stop immediately and let us know so we can do a survey.
Thank you. Can I suggest this was once the garden of the very house? That was once the garden of it is the garden of the original house. So contamination is quite iffy. It was a normal garden of the original house. So I don't know that contamination. Okay, you can speak again.
Yeah, my comment was simply that there is a report from environmental health on the actual application saying there may be contaminated land. I was referring back earlier to the point, and being helpful, referring back earlier to the point that Councillor Edwards made about a similar report on a single story extension on Moss Lane. Often in certain areas where there hasn't been previously been contaminated land, if they put down a caveat that if you find any contamination when you are in the building process, you let environmental health know. I'm just trying to be helpful for the question that was raised earlier.
Okay, well, we can put that down as a caveat, but I would just say that, sorry, knowing the estate, it was the garden, but we can put it down as a caveat. During the estate, it was the garden, and it has a huge parking place in front, which can accommodate a number of cars. So I personally have no objection. So shall we put that down as an objection?
No, Chair, we have Councillor Roberts wishing to come in, please.
Oh, yes, Councillor Roberts, please speak.
Thank you, Chair. No objection. Just comment on the provision of parking. I know there is ample space at the front, but I think there's a concern in the report, and I would like to see minimal impacts on the neighbouring property, Warwick Mews, which I believe is assisted living.
Yes, it is. It is.
And with regards to the question from Councillor Jackson, I think there's an access path up the back, and
Yes,
so that there is access from the front and the back. So I don't think there'd be,
yes,
but no harm in putting it in there. Thank you.
thank you. Right, so we can go on to say we have no objections, but we have any conditions at all? I can't see any conditions that, unless you want to state them clearly.
I think members expressed that they have no objections, but seek that there's clarity that the waste can be removed.
No contaminated land.
And there is assurance that there's no contaminated land, but I think that Councillor Wilson might just want to clarify that one.
Yeah.
I raised the point about the contaminated land report to assist in respect of a question stroke comment that was made earlier in our meeting at a similar report on a property on Moss Lane. I am not asking for there to be any conditions about contaminated land. I'm just making the point that in certain properties in certain areas where in the past there may have been contaminated land, environmental health do flag that up to say to the developer, if you do find contamination in the land, you must stop immediately and let environmental health know.
Okay.
Okay.
There was no part on that, but Councillor Roberts did seek that it was there would be reassurance of negligible or no impact on local on-street parking.
That's all right.
So that no objection with those comments can be submitted without resolution, Chair.
Yeah, thank you very much. I've lost my
Chair, I've got to interrupt for a second, Chair. We're at item 6 on the agenda now, and we're approaching a 2-hour meeting. Under the standing orders, we aren't to go over 2 hours unless members agree an extension of time. So I would ask if members want to adjourn the meeting or seek an extension of time of a reasonable amount. Councillor Wilson would like to mention.
I move we seek an extension of time of until 12:15 so we can finish the meeting.
yeah, I second that.
Those in favour, members? It's unanimous. Thank you. We continue. Sorry for interrupting. Councillor Jackson wishes to speak, Chair.
Thank you. Before we move on, I just want to just go back to application 20-1662M, the one on Bond Street. It's just been brought to my attention that I misspoke on that one. We had a statement from Councillor Liz Braithwaite from Cheshire East Council, who had some comments on that one. Her concerns were drawing us to the attention of the fact that the Home Office was large and it had a kitchenette, toilet and shower. And in my comment, I said that she objected to this application. Well, if we look at the statement, she didn't actually say she objected, but she had concerns and was obviously drawing our attention to her concern and would we put conditions on it. So I just want that, it will be minuted and she will see this. That
Okay.
so I'm just going back to that to just make that statement so that you know that she did not object to it, but she was obviously drawing our attention to concerns that she had.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. I'm just coming back on to. Okay, thanks very much. We can continue. Now, item 6 is the conservation area review action to note any updates. Are we there?
Chair, there are no updates as an arranged meeting was cancelled due to the COVID-19 pandemic, and the committee may, if they are so minded, seek that that meeting is rescheduled, but it will be rescheduled under an unknown format, whether it be virtual or socially distanced in the future. That'd be up to the committee to decide if they wish to schedule it or seek to schedule it now.
Okay. Thanks. Now, item 7, town character.
Sorry, Chair. Councillor Wilson wishes to come on that.
Oh, yes, please.
Yes, thanks, Pete, for the update on that. This on agenda item 7 were the topic of a meeting we saw as the Macclesfield Town Council Planning Committee with the Cheshire East officers about these two issues. It's fully understandable that the meeting on the 3rd of April was cancelled due to the COVID-19 restrictions. But I would like to move that we do go ahead with the meeting on this issue as soon as possible. It may be that we have to wait until the COVID-19 restrictions are over to get everybody together for the size of the meeting, but I do want us to pursue this meeting as soon as possible, please.
Yeah, we can. Do you move that, Councillor Wilson? Is anybody seconding? Oh, we can move that. We can agree to that.
Lovely, thank you.
Chair, sorry, I'll let Councillor Jackson, but I can just inform you that the officers can just be directed in that context. There's no resolution required unless you wish to make a resolution. Councillor Jackson.
Yes, I'm quite happy that we should get on with it and try and arrange a meeting, be it a virtual meeting, which probably will have to be at this stage.
Thank you.
Like I said,
Agreed.
the officers are so directed.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That's agreed.
Yeah.
Thanks very much. Correspondence. Have we all seen the appeal against the refusal of planning application 19/2721M? To note that correspondence.
Councillor Edwards would like to speak, Chair.
Yeah.
I just don't remember this, quite honestly. It did come up before us, did it? It was in the latter part of 2019. There were a lot of conditions and so on. Perhaps Fiona can help me on this. I don't remember it.
Councillor Wilson is ready to speak, Chair.
Yes, thank you. I did have a look at the actual application and the comments on there, and I couldn't see that we had made any comment. So I think I'm sure that the town clerk can clarify, but I think in situations like this is possibly a standard letter, which he sent to us. The reason for refusal was an appropriate form of development within the green belt. I couldn't see myself when I checked that we had in fact made any comments, so therefore I don't think we need to take any action.
We confirm that it is a standard letter that's issued to statutory consultees, as I understand it, and that's why we will receive it.
Well, we have noted it. All we can do is note the correspondence. That's all.
Councillor Edwards would like to return.
Yes.
Thank you. I hear what you say about noting the correspondence and so on. And I repeat again, last year in 2019, after the election in May, did this come before us for the civic officer wishes to come in and clarify? Thank you.
Yes, it was on the agenda for the meeting on the 28th of June, but that meeting was cancelled, did not take place, but it was on an agenda that would have been issued.
And was it refused? No, well, so can I ask, was it discussed at all? Who refused it?
Cheshire East Council refused the application.
All right, okay.
It was not discussed by this council because the meeting it was to be considered at was cancelled. I don't know from that date, unfortunately, off the top of my head, but I'm sure we can find out.
Because I can't remember being there.
Well, it was cancelled.
Okay, right. So can we just note it and move on?
Members happy to note, yeah. Lots of nods. Yes, Chair, you can note and move on.
Thank you. Members' items, none?
That's correct.
Date and time of next meeting. And will that be that 22nd of May?
22nd of May is the scheduled date, at 10 a.m. Format to be confirmed, subject to the COVID-19 restrictions and related regulations.
Thank you. Yes. So thank you all, councillors. Thank you very much. Mr. Slater has left us, and thanks for this new way of being. And I close the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Goodbye. Thank you very much.
All right.